Every year, Caribbean cuisine, and especially Jamaican cuisine, plays a major part in Leeds West Indian Carnival, with food stalls around Potter Newton Park and Ear Hills Avenue and Chapeltown Road. An estimated 70,000 pieces of jerk chicken, 80,000 portions of rice and peas, and a massive 100,000 fried dumpling are sold every carnival weekend. While thousands of people enjoy Jamaican cuisine during Leeds West Indian Carnival, not many realize the history behind the delicious food. Through the history of the Jamaican food, we can discover the history of the island itself. One of the earliest people to live in Jamaica was a Taino who arrived on the island around 800 CE. They settled near rivers throughout the island and had a largely fish-based diet. The Taino cooked fish and other meats such as otias, whatever that is, lizards, birds, and turtles, on wooden rocks over fires which they called barbacoa. It is from the Arawakan-speaking Taino that we get the modern word barbecue. The Taino also grew maize, also known as corn, cassava, peppers, beans, and sweet potato. One-pot meals and soups were also popular with the Taino people. The Spanish were the first Europeans to arrive in Jamaica at the end of the 15th century. They imported the first goats to the island. The Spanish also brought new crops to Jamaica, including ginger, sugarcane, and plantains. The Spanish also introduced their own cuisine to Jamaica that included escovitch fish. A mix of European and Jamaican ingredients led to the invention of gizadas, toto, grater cake, and other coconut-based desserts. The Spanish also brought the first enslaved Africans to Jamaica. Enslaved people from West Africa brought their own cuisines and cooking techniques to the island. Slow-cooked one-pot dishes such as soups and stews were popular among enslaved in Jamaica. These were often eaten with a cornmeal flatbread called Johnny cakes. In Jamaica, the Johnny cake developed into fried dumplings, which are sometimes still called fried Johnny cakes. Cornmeal was a high-energy staple food for the enslaved Africans and was used to make porridge. Sugarcane was the most prosperous crop grown in Jamaica during the slavery era, with 90% of sugar in Europe coming from the Caribbean. Jamaica, Haiti, and Barbados became the largest producers of sugar. Plantation slaves in Barbados were the first to discover that molasses, a byproduct of the sugarcane process, could be fermented into alcohol, which developed into the first rums in the early 17th century. Caribbean rum quickly became popular with British privateers, some of whom became pirates and buccaneers. Rum began its association with the Royal Navy in 1655, when the British captured Jamaica from the Spanish. Like the Spanish, the British also brought their own cuisine to Jamaica. Spice buns, such as the Cornish saffron bun, became popular in Britain in the 17th century, when exotic spices became more commonly available. Larger versions of saffron buns were known as saffron cakes and were baked in loaf tins. Saffron cakes became popular in Jamaica and developed into the Jamaican spiced bun. The British also brought traditional hot cross buns to Jamaica. These treats were enjoyed on Good Friday. Eventually, the spice bun replaced the hot cross buns and spice buns became associated with Easter. Another Cornish treat that became popular in Jamaica was the Cornish pasty, which was first brought to Jamaica in the 19th century. Jamaican spices and seasonings were added to the mix, and pasties evolved into the Jamaican patty. In the second half of the 19th century, processed foods such as tinned foods like tomato ketchup, evaporated milk, and corned beef were introduced to the island. The British also introduced new crops to Jamaica, including ackee from West Africa and breadfruit from Oceania, which I gave you guys a story about that the other day in the other video. In the 18th century, the Jamaican Maroons, Africans who escaped slavery, mixed African flavors with Taino cooking styles, using local herbs and spices such as Scotch bonnet pepper. The Maroons developed jerk seasoning, which was used on barbecued meat including chicken and pork. The Maroons also used Scotch bonnet pepper in their one-pot dishes. These one-pot dishes developed into curries after the arrival of indentured laborers from India, beginning in 1845. The Indians brought with them curry powders, spices, and roti. The arrival of these new ingredients led to the development of curry goat and other curries using a mix of Indian and Jamaican ingredients. Indians also introduced new plants to the island. These included mango, tamarind, and jackfruit. Indentured laborers from India also introduced cannabis or marijuana to Jamaica in the 1850s. Chinese indentured laborers arrived in Jamaica in 1849, and they too brought their own cuisine to the island. Chinese food remains popular in Jamaica up to this day. The popularity of Jamaican rum continued into the 19th century, and in 1825 John Ray opened the Shakespeare Tavern in Kingston and began selling his rum. In 1860, John Ray was joined by his nephew Charles James Ward, and the brand became Ray and Nephew. Ray and Nephew rum became one of Jamaica's most popular exports and won awards around the globe throughout the 19th century. The Jamaican banana export industry began in the 1860s and reached a peak in the 1880s. London food wholesaler Edward Fife began commercial imports of banana in 1888. Workers on the banana boats working long hours, and the folk song Day Delight, later known as the Banana Boat Song, was written around this period. Marketplaces such as Linstead Market and Coronation Market in Kingston became popular in the 19th century, and the folk song Linstead Market was written around the end of the 19th century. Markets across Jamaica allowed local farmers to sell fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, fish, and poultry. Jamaican-owned food companies began emerging on the island in the 1920s. One of the oldest, Grace Kennedy, was formed in 1922 as a small trading establishment. Its most popular product is Grace Hot Tomato Ketchup, which was introduced in 1959 along with Grace Vienna sausages.
Let's take a walk down memory lane with a Grace favorite.
This hungry monster is out to raid the cupboard for a treat. And here comes a great little sausage with a great big taste and all the fine Viennas in the can from Grace.
For a sumptuous feast or a tasty treat, Grace makes Viennas that are great to eat.
I love them all. I'll take the lot. Oh, no, you won't. You're just plain greedy. But Grace Viennas are so good to eat. Then share this can with me, my friend.
The 1930s saw the development of the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica. The spread of the Rastafarian movement across Jamaica had an impact on Jamaican cuisine. Most Rastas eat an ital or natural diet, made up of organic and local food. Following the dietary laws of the Old Testament, some Rastas avoid eating pork or crustaceans. Other Rastas are vegetarian and avoid sugar and salt in their food. Rastas also avoid alcohol and caffeine. Jamaica's national beer, Red Stripe Lager, was first produced in 1928 from a recipe developed by Paul H. Geddes and Bill Martindale. By the 1940s, the beer had become extremely popular in Jamaica and was a drink of choice to celebrate Jamaican independence in 1962. Red Stripe began being associated with Jamaican music in the early 60s. The 1963 album, Let's Have a Red Stripe Party, is one early example. Red Stripe Lager became popular in Britain in the 1970s and from 1976 became the unofficial beer of Notting Hill Carnival. Red Stripe is a sponsor of the annual Reggae Sumfest festival held in Montego Bay. Restaurants serving Jamaican cuisine have existed in Britain since the early 1940s, but have failed to take off to the same extent as Indian or Chinese restaurants. However, small independent restaurants have had success in communities with large West Indian populations. It is only in more recent years that Jamaican food has become mainstream. Jamaican food is now readily available in British supermarkets. So thank you guys for joining me. That's the video. Bless.